Hi, welcome. I'm the Busy Bee Mom, and I am actually going to give you additional information that goes with the video about the bench cushion. So on the web I have posted this video of how to make this bench cushion with piping. And if you've watched the video, when I got all done I simply sewed it shut. So this is pretty much on here permanently. And I found myself in the position where I needed to make a cover for someone who lives in a different state, and the thing is huge. So being able to sew it on her cushion wasn't an option. So what I ended up doing is I ended up putting a zipper in it. So basically this video is to show you how to put a zipper all along the side of your cushion instead of sewing it shut. So that's what I did with hers, and this actually goes on a day bed. So the thing is enormous. I had to use a sleeping bag zipper in it. It's like 70 some inches by 30 some. So obviously shipping me the entire bed was not a great option. So you can see along this one side here, I have a zipper in it. So now I can just mail it to her, and she can slip her cushion or her mattress in it and zip it shut. And this way you could also take it off and wash it, whereas the original one is just stitched on, so you'd have to spot wash it. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. You have a great day. First thing you need to do is decide where you want to have your zipper. So I'm using this cardboard box to illustrate a cushion. So pretend this is your cushion, and do you want it on your width side or your length side? So in the previous video you cut out two pieces exactly the same for the front and the back, and two pieces exactly the same for both of the sides. You're going to want to take one of those pieces and cut it a little bit differently to incorporate the zipper. So I'm actually going to put mine on my long side because what I'm using is really big, and I think it'll be easier. So let's figure out the width of your cushion. Mine is 6 inches, and I want to cut that in half. So I want to have my zipper right in the middle. So I'm going to figure 3 inches and 3 inches if I put it right in the middle. Then I want to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to the top edge and an inch seam allowance in my middle section where my zipper is going. Want to add a 1/2 inch to the top, an inch in the middle where my zipper is going to be. So basically we're going to cut this down the middle. Whoopsie. We want to add a 1/2 inch on top, and we want to add an inch right there. And we're going to do that to both pieces. I just want a little more to work with in the middle around my zipper. So instead of cutting what would normally have been a 7-inch strip, my 6 inches plus my 1/2 inch, I'm actually going to cut two pieces that are 4 1/2. 3, 4 1/2. So 2 strips 4 1/2 by my entire width. Okay. And once you have those two pieces cut, you're going to sew them together. I know that seems kind of funny. You're going to sew them together using a 1-inch seam allowance, and I want you to use what's called the basting stitch. And that's the same stitch as a gathering stitch. It's going to be your widest stitch setting on your machine. For my machine, it's a scale 1 through 4, 1 being really tight, 4 being really loose, and 2 being normal stitching length. So I'm going to set my machine for 4. I'm going to stitch this using 1-inch seam allowance. I'll be back. Okay, I sewed my two pieces together, and now these should be exactly the same width as the piece that I cut for the other side. Let me double check that. This is the piece I cut for the other side. They are the same. Yay! I did something right today. So, okay, double check that. Now, you're going to want to press this seam open and flat. So take your iron and press that. I have to finger press mine. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, see this pattern? It's like printed in, and if I iron it, it goes completely smooth. I just learned that the hard way in another scrap saw. I can't iron this with an iron because it will lose that texture. So I'm just going to finger press it flat. Finger pressing is where you just use your friction of the heat from your hands to iron. Okay. There's next two steps is on this side. I want you to mark with something that'll come out of your fabric. I have these blue markers that come out. I mean, even if it's really humid in the house, it'll come out. And I want to mark a 1/4 inch from my seam. So I've got this on the 1/4 inch. I'm going to draw a line. 1/4 inch, and I want to do that on both sides. So then I would flip it over. Do it on this side also. So basically I want my seam line, and then I want 2 marks 1/4 inch from it. Can't hardly see the blue, but do that all the way. And for me that's like 70-some inches away. But when you're done with that, flip it over, stay put, and position your zipper on. Unfortunately I had to buy a black zipper because that was all I could find the right length. And it's got a pull tab on both sides. So this is the good side though. This would be normally your top side. So you're going to push that down on your fabric, and you want to center it in the middle of that area. And I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the top. I know I have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so I need to make sure I'm well below that, which I think I will be. I think I'll be fine. Center that and then pin it. And if you want, you can kind of peek as you go down and make sure. Basically what you want is you want the middle of your zipper to line up with that stitch that you just did. So pin that. If it was a smaller zipper, not so thick, I would use double stick tape. They actually sell some double stick tape at the fabric store that washes out, that's really thin, that you can use. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. Unfortunately the top is gone. This is a double stick tape they sell. As you can see, it's sticky. It's got lint all over it. And it's got like a wax paper coating, so you can peel it off, stick it down, and then peel it off and stick it. So that works really good too instead of pins, but I don't want to use up a lot of it, and I don't think it would hold this heavy of a zipper anyway, so I'm just going to pin it down and center it. Then when you're done with that, you flip it over and you stitch along those blue lines, being careful that you keep it nice and flat. And you're going to want to put a zipper foot on your machine, and I'll show you what that is when we get to that point. Okay, I've got it all marked and pinned. There's one problem I'm going to have those. As I'm sewing, my pins are actually on the back, so I'm just going to have to just kind of run my hand underneath and pull out the pins as I go. That, or you can try to sew over them and see how that goes. Now to sew this, I'm going to take off my regular foot, and I'm going to use a foot that looks like this. I'm going to have my needle, position my needle so it's right on that side, and then when I come over here I'll position my needle so it's on this side of my foot. Because if you try to use your normal foot, you're going to hit this bulk part, because your foot's going to be about that wide. So you want a foot that allows you to get up just on the other side of it. And this actually has a thing on top where you can loosen it, and you can slide it back and forth to adjust it to where your foot is. When you're using something like this though, make sure that you put your foot down and then you check your needle position before you start to sew. Because if you set your needle with your foot up, it can change a little bit as it go down. So I'm going to put this in my machine, and then I'm going to sew from my top side, both sides. And I want to set my machine back to normal stitch. Alright, I wanted to show you the setup on my machine real quick. As you can see, I have my foot here, and then my needle goes right down next to it. If you're wondering why I have a rubber band on here, it's because I don't have a 1-inch line. So when I sold that 1-inch seam allowance, I put a rubber band on here at the 1-inch mark. So I'm going to put my fabric in, line up with my blue line, and I'm going to sew. Now, when you hit that spot where that thingy is, you might run into a bit of trouble. You might have to swerve out a little bit, or just have one of those make it work moments. So just see how that goes when you hit that and what happens. Something's not quite right here. So with my machine set on my normal stitch, I'm now going to sew down this side, and then I'm going to come back up to the top and sew down from the other side. I'll move my foot over to the other side of my needle though, or move your needle to the other side of your foot depending on if your machine will let you move your needle. I don't want to go back from the other side and go this way, because it if the fabric travels at all, I'll have it traveling in opposite directions. I always want to go from the top down so it travels the same way. Okay, I just got it done sewing it. I sewed right down on both sides. Now, as I went through, I remembered that the trick to getting around this lump here is to move it down, stitch a ways, then move it back up, take it out of the machine, move it up, and then continue stitching. And that way you can get around it, because otherwise it's too lumpy. One thing I want to talk to you about is, as I was sewing, I had trouble with it puckering. You know, my needle's like here and I just have too much fabric. In fact, I just kept chasing it down, trying to stretch it to get rid of that, to make sure I didn't pucker it. And at one point I even took out all the pins because I had so much fabric gathered up in front of my pin. I took it out and repinned it, stretching the fabric a little bit. So just, you might have to work with it, but that's why you sew it on this side and not this side. Because if you were to sew it on this side, you wouldn't see those problems and you wouldn't be able to adjust. So by sewing it on this side, I don't have any puckers in my stitching. It is nice, smooth, clean, all 76 inches of it. So now is what I think is the fun part. Actually, I have two things I need to do. I got to cut off this zipper. It's obviously too long. So just chop it off with your scissors, and then I actually want to go in and maybe take off some of these teeth back, because I need to be able to stitch across here with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So go 1/2 inch in and then maybe go another little bit more so that your foot can go down that. You want to be able to use your normal sewing foot and go down there. So I'm just going to cut the whole zipper off, and then I'm going to cut the teeth off back and pull out my basting stitches and trim all my threads. Okay, I've cut off my zipper, and I started to come up and cut it off so that I can sew, but it's starting to split, and then I remembered, oh yeah, you're supposed to tack it. So you're taking a needle and thread, go up a little bit, and try to just do some stitches and wrap it around. Why can't I get that through there? My goodness. And just wrap it around, and that's going to act like a stop, and it's going to prevent it from splitting on you. So wrap that around a good maybe 4 or 5 times. And then also on this side I'm going to come up. I want to be on my seam though. And I'm just going to kind of whip stitch my seam shut on this bottom part a little bit. And that's going to keep the zipper from going all the way to the end. I would just want it to stop short of the end. So I'm going to just sort of tack this shut here. And I'll actually go all the way down and tack it all the way. And that way when I sew across here, I know it's flat and it won't be like all wacky or anything. So I'm going to tack this all the way down and then go across there. And then I'm going to come up just a little bit higher. I want to go up a whole inch. And that gives me my good 1/2 inch seam allowance, and it gives me room for my regular sewing foot to go through. Alrighty. Okay, I took my basting stitches out. I've got my zipper trimmed, so now it's just pretty much an invisible zipper. I mean, you zip it up and you don't really see it. There's a little black crack there. Would have been much better if I had a beige zipper, but I didn't have any, so that's that. And then on my other end, I've got it tacked, stitched. Oops, I still got some threads to trim. Stitched. And now this piece should be exactly the same size as the piece you stitched to the other side of your box. So this piece on this side now should be the same as the piece for this side. Got that other piece right here. Line them up. If I measured correctly, they're pretty good. Alright, now I can just finish making my cushion like the instructions say, and using this piece like I would the normal piece, except now it's got a zipper down the middle. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was clear and easy to understand. You have a great day.